a galaxy far, far away, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds on black velvet, there existed a tale, a legend whispered from one generation to the next. It was the story of a sword, not forged of common metal, but of captured night and starlight, a blade as dark as the void between worlds, and it was called the Darksaber. This is the history of that fabled weapon, a chronicle of its long and bloody journey through the annals of time, a saga of power, betrayal, and the unquenchable spirit of a warrior people known as the Mandalorians. Our story begins in an age of relative peace, a time when the Old Republic flourished and the Jedi Order stood as its guardians. Yet, even in this era of light, there were those who walked a different path, a people for whom battle was a sacred rite and honor was forged in the crucible of combat. These were the Mandalorians, a proud and formidable warrior culture, their history steeped in conflict and conquest. They were known throughout the galaxy for their distinctive armor, wrought from the near indestructible Beskar iron, and their unyielding martial prowess. It was from this martial society that a child was born with a rare and mysterious connection to the Force, that mystical energy field that binds the galaxy together. This child was named Tar Vizsla, and his destiny would forever be entwined with the fate of his people and the Jedi. The Jedi, ever watchful for those strong in the Force, discovered the young Tar Vizsla and, recognizing his potential, inducted him into their order. He was the first of his kind, a Mandalorian Jedi, a being who embodied the seemingly irreconcilable philosophies of a warrior culture and a monastic order of peacekeepers. As was the tradition for all Jedi, Tar Vizsla was tasked with constructing his own lightsaber, a weapon that was both a tool and a reflection of its wielder's soul. He journeyed to the sacred planet of Ilum, a world of shimmering ice and living kyber crystals, the heart of every lightsaber. There, in the crystal caves, a unique kyber crystal called to him, one unlike any other. It was a crystal that pulsed with an inner darkness, a sliver of the night sky given form. From this singular gem, Tar Vizsla forged his lightsaber. The blade that sprang forth from the hilt was not the vibrant green or serene blue of his Jedi brethren, nor was it the malevolent crimson of the Sith. Instead, it was a blade of pure obsidian darkness, surrounded by a crackling aura of white light. It was a sword that seemed to drink the very light around it, and it was named the Darksaber. The Darksaber was a weapon of singular beauty and power, its flat, katana-like blade a testament to its creator's Mandalorian heritage. It was a symbol of his unique identity, a bridge between two disparate cultures. For a time, Tar Vizsla served the Jedi Order with honor and distinction, his unique lightsaber a familiar sight on many battlefields. Yet, his heart remained with his people, and the call of his homeworld, Mandalore, was a song he could not long ignore. Eventually, Tar Vizsla left the Jedi Order and returned to Mandalore, not as a prodigal son, but as a leader. He wielded the Darksaber not as a weapon of conquest, but as a symbol of unity, a beacon to rally the disparate clans of his people. Under his rule, Mandalore entered a golden age. He became the Mandalore, the sole ruler of the Mandalorian people, and his wisdom and strength brought a rare period of peace and prosperity to his often fractured world. Statues were erected in his honor, and his name became a legend, a testament to the idea that a Mandalorian could be both a warrior and a peacekeeper. He was a revered figure, a symbol of what his people could achieve when united under a single worthy leader. But, like all mortals, Tar Vizsla's time in the galaxy came to an end. Upon his death, a question arose. What was to become of his unique and powerful weapon, the Darksaber? The Jedi Order, recognizing the Darksaber as a powerful artifact created by one of their own, claimed the blade and interred it within the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the heart of the Republic. There it remained for a time, a silent monument to the only Mandalorian to have ever walked the path of the Jedi. It was kept as a historical relic, a reminder of a time when the two great orders had found common ground in a single individual. However, the members of House Vizsla, Tar's descendants, saw this not as an act of preservation, but as a theft. To them, the Darksaber was their birthright, an ancestral heirloom that belonged on Mandalore, not in a Jedi vault. As the old Republic began to crumble, its foundations shaken by war and the rising darkness of the Sith, the galaxy was plunged into chaos. It was during this tumultuous period that the Mandalorians, ever opportunistic, saw their chance. House Vizsla, fueled by a sense of righteous indignation, orchestrated a daring raid on the Jedi Temple itself. They were determined to liberate the Darksaber and return it to its rightful home. Under the cover of the wider conflict that raged across the galaxy, a group of elite Mandalorian warriors infiltrated the heavily fortified Jedi Temple. They navigated its sacred halls, their Beskar armor a stark contrast to the serene artistry of the Jedi. Their mission was a success. They fought their way to the chamber where the Darksaber was kept, and after a fierce battle with the temple's guardians, they reclaimed their ancestral blade. The Darksaber was brought back to Mandalore in triumph, its return a symbol of Mandalorian defiance and a rejection of Jedi authority. It was no longer a bridge between two cultures, but a weapon to be used against their ancient enemies. With the Darksaber in their possession, House Vizsla's power and influence grew. The blade became a potent symbol of leadership, and whoever wielded it held the authority to unite the Mandalorian clans. And unite them they did. The Darksaber was used to rally the warriors of Mandalore to forge them into a single, formidable fighting force. It was used to strike down those who opposed them, and for a time, House Vizsla ruled all of Mandalore. The Darksaber became a weapon of war, its dark blade tasting the blood of many Jedi. The animosity between the two orders, which had simmered for centuries, erupted into open conflict, and the Darksaber was at the heart of it all. For generations, the Darksaber was passed down through the line of House Vizsla, from one warrior to the next. Its history became a bloody tapestry, each thread a tale of conquest and glory, of battles won and enemies vanquished. The wielder of the Darksaber was not simply a warrior. They were the leader of their people, the Mandalore. The blade and the title were inextricably linked, and to challenge one was to challenge the other. This tradition continued for centuries, the Darksaber a constant presence in the turbulent history of Mandalore. It was a symbol of their enduring strength, their refusal to bow to any outside power. Our tale now leaps forward in time, to the era of the Clone Wars, a galaxy-spanning conflict that pitted the Galactic Republic against the Confederacy of Independent Systems. During this time, Mandalore was a world divided. The old warrior ways had been supplanted by a new pacifist government, led by the noble Duchess Satine Kryze. But not all Mandalorians embraced this new philosophy. There were those who clung to the old ways, who saw pacifism as a betrayal of their heritage. Among them was a man named Pre Vizsla, a direct descendant of Tar Vizsla himself. Pre Vizsla was the leader of a terrorist faction known as the Death Watch, a group dedicated to overthrowing Duchess Satine and restoring Mandalore to its former martial glory. And in his possession was the ancient symbol of Mandalorian leadership, the Darksaber. He wielded it with a fierce pride, a constant reminder of the legacy he sought to reclaim. Preb, Vizsla and the Death Watch waged a shadow war against the new Mandalorians, their acts of terror disrupting the fragile peace that Duchess Satine had worked so hard to build. In his quest for power, Pre Vizsla was not above making alliances with the darkest forces in the galaxy. He found a willing partner in the sinister Sith Lord, Darth Maul, a being of pure hatred and ambition. Maul, along with his brother Savage Opress, had formed a criminal empire known as the Shadow Collective, and he saw in Pre Vizsla a means to an end, a pawn in his own game of power. Together, they orchestrated a brilliant and brutal takeover of Mandalore. The Shadow Collective launched a series of devastating attacks on the planet, creating a crisis that the pacifist government was ill-equipped to handle. Then, at the height of the chaos, Pre Vizsla and the Death Watch emerged as the planet's saviors, driving back the criminal forces they had secretly unleashed. The people of Mandalore, desperate for a strong leader, hailed Pre Vizsla as a hero. Duchess Satine was deposed, and Pre Vizsla, with the Darksaber held high, declared himself the new ruler of Mandalore, the new Mandalore. He had achieved his goal, but his victory was to be short-lived. Having used Darth Maul to achieve his ends, Pre Vizsla betrayed his Sith ally, imprisoning him and his brother. It was a fatal miscalculation, for he had underestimated the depths of Maul's cunning and ruthlessness. Maul escaped his prison and, in accordance with ancient Mandalorian law, challenged Pre Vizsla to a duel for leadership. The two warriors faced each other in the throne room, the fate of Mandalore hanging in the balance. The duel was a spectacle of martial prowess, the crimson blades of Maul's lightsaber clashing against the shadowy energies of the Darksaber. But in the end, there could be only one victor. Darth Maul, with his superior skill and raw, untamed power, defeated Pre Vizsla. And as the fallen leader knelt before him, Maul took the Darksaber from his grasp, and with a single, swift strike, ended his life. With that act, Darth Maul, an outsider, a Sith Lord, became the new wielder of the Darksaber and the rightful ruler of Mandalore according to their own traditions. But his rule was not to be a peaceful one. Many Mandalorians, including Pre Vizsla's own lieutenant, Bo-Katan Kryze, the sister of the deposed Duchess Satine, refused to bow to a non-Mandalorian. A civil war erupted on Mandalore, pitting those loyal to Maul against those who followed Bo-Katan. The planet was once again plunged into bloodshed and chaos. Maul's reign, however, drew the attention of an even greater power. His former master, the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious. Sidious would not tolerate a rival, and he traveled to Mandalore to deal with his former apprentice. In a spectacular duel, Sidious defeated Maul, a brutal display of the true power of the dark side. Maul was taken captive, his dreams of a criminal empire shattered. But what of the Darksaber? In his haste, Sidious left the blade behind. It was recovered by Maul's loyal followers, and, after they orchestrated his escape from prison, it was returned to him. For a time, Maul continued to wield the Darksaber, but his connection to Mandalore had been severed. He eventually abandoned the planet, and the Darksaber with it, hiding it away in his lair on the desolate world of Dathomir. There the fabled blade remained, lost to the galaxy, its dark light extinguished, waiting for a new hand to claim it. Years passed, and the galaxy fell under the oppressive rule of the Galactic Empire. It was a dark time, a time of fear and rebellion, and it was in this era that the Darksaber would once again emerge from the shadows. It was discovered by a young Mandalorian warrior named Sabine Wren, a member of Clan Wren, which was itself a part of the ancient House Vizsla. Sabine, a skilled artist and explosives expert, was a member of the Ghost Crew, a small band of rebels fighting against the tyranny of the Empire. She found the Darksaber on Dathomir, in the lair of the long-dead Darth Maul. At first, Sabine wanted nothing to do with the blade. The weight of its history, the blood that had been shed in its name, was too much for her to bear. But her friend and mentor, the Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus, saw the Darksaber's potential as a symbol to rally the Mandalorian people against the Empire. He convinced Sabine to learn to wield it, to embrace her heritage. Kanan trained Sabine in the art of lightsaber combat, but the Darksaber was unlike any other blade. It was heavy, unwieldy, its energy seeming to fight against her every move. Kanan explained that the Darksaber was not just a weapon, it was a conduit for the wielder's thoughts and emotions. Sabine's own inner turmoil, her guilt over her past actions in service to the Empire, was making the blade a burden. To master the Darksaber, Sabine had to master herself. She had to confront her past, to forgive herself, and to embrace her destiny. And in a moment of emotional catharsis, she did just that. With a clear mind and a steady heart, Sabine Wren was finally able to wield the Darksaber with the grace and skill of a true Mandalorian warrior. She used it to unite her clan and to fight for the liberation of her homeworld. In her fight against the Empire, Sabine encountered Gar Saxon, the Imperial Viceroy of Mandalore. Saxon, a Mandalorian himself, had betrayed his people and sided with the Empire. He too had a claim to the Darksaber. Sabine faced Gar Saxon in single combat, and, after a fierce duel, she emerged victorious, solidifying her claim to the Darksaber in the eyes of her people. But Sabine did not see herself as the leader that Mandalore needed. She saw that leadership in another, Bo-Katan Kryze, the veteran warrior who had fought against Maul and the Empire for years. In a selfless act, Sabine gifted the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, believing that she was the one who could truly unite all the clans of Mandalore. It was an unconventional transfer of power, for the Darksaber was meant to be won in combat, not given as a gift. Bo-Katan accepted the blade and the responsibility that came with it. With the Darksaber as her symbol of leadership, she rallied the Mandalorians and for a time, successfully ruled a free Mandalore. But the Empire was not so easily defeated. In a brutal act of retribution, the Empire launched a devastating assault on Mandalore, an event that would come to be known as the Great Purge. The Imperial forces, led by the ruthless Moff Gideon, overwhelmed the Mandalorian defenses. Cities were razed, and the surface of the planet was scorched and poisoned. In a desperate attempt to save what was left of her people, Bo-Katan made a fateful decision. She surrendered to Moff Gideon, and as a part of her surrender, she handed over the Darksaber. She hoped that this act of submission would spare the lives of the remaining Mandalorians. But Moff Gideon was a man without honor. He took the Darksaber and then betrayed his word, continuing his brutal campaign of annihilation. The Great Purge shattered the Mandalorian people, scattering the survivors across the galaxy. And Moff Gideon, the architect of their destruction, now possessed their most sacred symbol of leadership. Gideon, a man obsessed with Mandalorian culture and the power it represented, saw the Darksaber as the ultimate prize, a key to his own dark ambitions. Our story now comes to its final chapter, a time when the Empire has fallen, but its remnants still cling to power in the outer reaches of the galaxy. It is here that we meet a lone Mandalorian bounty hunter known as Din Djarin. He was a man of few words, a follower of the ancient creed, who never removed his helmet in the presence of others. Din Djarin's path crossed with that of Moff Gideon when he rescued a mysterious, Force-sensitive child named Grogu, a being that Gideon desperately wanted for his own nefarious purposes. In his quest to protect the child, Din Djarin found himself in direct conflict with Moff Gideon and his Imperial remnant. This conflict culminated in a dramatic showdown aboard Gideon's light cruiser. There, Din Djarin faced Moff Gideon in single combat. Gideon, wielding the Darksaber with a cruel and mocking confidence, was a formidable opponent. But Din Djarin, driven by his love for the child and his unwavering Mandalorian honor, was stronger. He defeated Moff Gideon, and in doing so, became the new and unexpected wielder of the Darksaber. He had won the blade in combat, and according to the ancient laws, he was now its rightful owner, and by extension, he had a claim to the throne of Mandalore. But Din Djarin had no desire to be a ruler. He was a simple bounty hunter, a father to his foundling. The weight of the Darksaber, both literally and figuratively, was a burden to him. He struggled to wield the blade, its energy resisting him, its dark blade heavy in his hand. He was a warrior, but he was not a leader in the way that the Darksaber demanded. He was even challenged for the blade by another surviving Mandalorian, Paz Vizsla, a descendant of the same house as the Darksaber's creator. Din Djarin defeated him, further solidifying his claim, but his heart was not in it. He tried to give the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, believing it to be rightfully hers, but she refused, for she had learned a hard lesson from the past. The Darksaber could not be given. It had to be won. For a time, the Darksaber remained with Din Djarin, a symbol of a destiny he did not want. But as the scattered Mandalorian tribes began to come together to dream of a new home, the need for a true leader became apparent. In a moment of crisis, when Din Djarin was captured by a monstrous cyborg, it was Bo-Katan who came to his rescue. She took up the Darksaber, and with a skill and confidence that Din Djarin lacked, she defeated the creature. In that moment, the other Mandalorians saw what Din Djarin had seen all along, that Bo-Katan was the leader they needed. And so, with a clever loophole in their creed, Din Djarin was able to pass the Darksaber to her, for she had defeated the one who had defeated him. With the Darksaber once again in her hand, Bo-Katan Kryze united the Mandalorian people and led them back to their ravaged homeworld to begin the long and arduous task of rebuilding. But their journey was not over. Moff Gideon, having escaped from custody, returned to Mandalore with a new and improved army, his desire for revenge burning hotter than ever. The final battle for the fate of Mandalore was fought in the ruins of their great city. Bo-Katan, wielding the Darksaber, led her people against Gideon and his Beskar-clad super commandos. In the midst of the climactic battle, in a final desperate act of malice, Moff Gideon cornered Bo-Katan, and with his armored fist, he did the unthinkable. He shattered the Darksaber, the ancient blade breaking into 1,000 pieces, its dark light extinguished forever. And so, the long and storied history of the Darksaber comes to an end. A weapon forged in the heart of a star, a symbol of leadership that had guided and divided a people for 1,000 years, was no more. But the story of the Mandalorians does not end with the breaking of a sword, for their strength was never truly in the blade, but in their indomitable spirit, their unwavering honor, and their commitment to one another. And as they stood together, united in their shared loss and their shared hope, they proved that a people are not defined by a single relic, but by the bonds that tie them together, a truth as enduring as the stars themselves.